The champagne flute in Sasha's hand trembled, the tiny, expensive bubbles a cruel mockery of the life she'd never have. The gala was a symphony of whispered wealth, a world of crystal and caviar that she had only ever cleaned on her hands and knees after hours. She was here as a server, a ghost in a black and white uniform meant to be invisible. But one person saw her, Liam, her Liam, or rather, the man who had been her Liam for 3 years, until he'd traded her for a partnership at his father's firm and the icy, perfect hand of his new fiancée Celeste. And he was walking right toward her, a condescending smirk playing on his lips, ready to deliver the final public blow. "Sasha, I almost didn't recognize you," Liam said, his voice dripping with faux warmth. Celeste clung to his arm, her diamond ring catching the light like a shard of glass. "I'm glad to see you landed on your feet. Though I suppose some things never change, do they?" The unspoken words hung in the air. "You're still serving people. You're still beneath us." Her throat tightened, the air turning to shards in her lungs. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the polished marble floor. This was the culmination of every humiliation, every bill she couldn't pay, every lonely night in her cold studio apartment. He had taken her heart and was now grinding the last pieces under his polished leather shoe. Her gaze, desperate and wild, swept across the room and landed on him. Alexander Thorne. The Thorn. A man so wealthy, so powerful, he was less a person and more a force of nature. He stood apart, a solitary cliff against a sea of socialites observing the room with an expression of profound boredom. He was famously ruthless, notoriously private, and completely unapproachable, but he was also her only chance. A reckless, insane plan ignited in her mind. It was a Hail Mary pass thrown from the depths of her despair. "Excuse me?" she whispered to a stunned Liam, her voice barely audible. She walked, her legs feeling like water, toward the millionaire. Every step was an eternity. The music faded. The chatter became a distant hum. All she could hear was the frantic beating of her own heart. She stopped before him, her server's uniform a stark contrast to his bespoke black tuxedo. "Mr. Thorne," she breathed, her voice trembling. His cold, gray eyes, the color of a winter storm, flickered down to her. He didn't speak, merely raised a single interrogative eyebrow. This was it, the point of no return. She leaned in, close enough to smell the clean, sharp scent of his cologne. "Please," she begged, her voice a raw, broken whisper. "My ex is here. He's destroying what's left of me. Just for 5 minutes. Act like you love me, please." The words hung between them, pathetic and audacious. She expected him to laugh, to call security, to have her thrown out into the night. Instead, his gaze shifted from her face to somewhere over her shoulder, to where Liam and Celeste were watching, their curiosity palpable. A slow, almost imperceptible change came over his features. The boredom vanished, replaced by a focused intensity. He didn't say a word. He simply reached out, his large, warm hand enveloping her cold, trembling one. Then he did something that stole the air from her lungs. He brought her fingers to his lips and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to her knuckles. His eyes never left hers, and in their stormy depths, she saw a performance so convincing it felt real. "There's no need to act, my darling," Alexander Thorne said, his voice a low, intimate rumble that carried just enough to be heard by the right people. "You kept me waiting." He tucked her hand into the crook of his arm, his body a solid, sheltering presence beside her. He led her away, not as a server he'd just met, but as a cherished companion. "You're trembling," he murmured, his head bent toward hers, the picture of a concerned lover. I'm sorry," she stammered, her mind reeling. "Don't be. Just follow my lead." He guided her through the crowd, his posture possessive and protective. She caught a glimpse of Liam's face. The smirk was gone, replaced by stunned, bewildered jealousy. It was the most potent medicine she had ever tasted. For the next half hour, Alexander Thorne wove a masterpiece. He introduced her to powerful people as Sasha, with no other explanation. A subtle implication that her presence was so well known it needed no context. He fetched her a fresh glass of champagne, his fingers brushing hers in a way that sent an unwelcome electric jolt up her arm. He listened to her with rapt attention when she managed to stammer a few words, his gaze soft and focused solely on her. It was an illusion, A beautiful, heartbreaking illusion. And she was falling for her own con. Finally, he led her out onto a deserted balcony overlooking the glittering city. The chill night air was a shock after the warmth of his performance. "I think your point has been made," he said, his voice reverting to its earlier detached coolness. The lover was gone. The CEO was back. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. You didn't have to do all that." "I am a man of thoroughness," he replied, his gaze sharp and assessing. "But nothing in this world is free, Sasha." Her heart plummeted. Of course, she was a fool to think this was charity. I don't have any money." "I don't want your money." He leaned against the balustrade, studying her. "I want your time. And your discretion." "What do you mean?" "I have a 7-year-old daughter, Eleanor," he said, the words clipped. "Her mother is no longer in the picture. She needs a stable female influence, a nanny. The last 3 were hired by my HR department and were either incompetent or more interested in getting a photo for the tabloids." He looked her up and down, a CEO evaluating an asset. "You are desperate. You are, if tonight is any indication, a decent actress, and you clearly need a roof over your head and a salary that will ensure you never have to beg in a ballroom again. You will move into the guest house. You will be kind to my daughter. You will attend functions with me when required to maintain a certain public image, and you will ask no questions about my past." Sasha stood frozen. It was insane. It was a transaction. She would be trading her freedom, her life, for a gilded cage. But as she looked back through the glass doors, she saw Liam staring out at them, his face a mask of furious confusion. She thought of her empty apartment, her maxed-out credit cards, the relentless grinding pressure of poverty. She looked at Alexander Thorne. He was offering her a sanctuary, even if it was a prison of his design. Taking a shaky breath, she met his stormy eyes. "For how long?" "For as long as I require," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Do we have a deal?" She was making a deal with the devil. But the devil had just saved her from a hell she could no longer bear. "We have a deal." Life at the Thorne estate was a surreal dream. Sasha's uniform was replaced by a wardrobe of soft, expensive clothes. Her cell was a sun-drenched guest house more beautiful than any place she had ever lived. Her charge, Eleanor, was a quiet, thoughtful child with her father's stormy eyes and a heartbreaking shyness that melted under Sasha's genuine warmth. The performances for the public continued. Alexander was a meticulous director, a hand on the small of her back at a charity auction, a shared private smile across a dinner table, a kiss always on the cheek or the hand that was just persuasive enough to be believable. Each touch was a brand, each look a carefully crafted lie, and with each passing day, the line between the performance and her own heart began to blur dangerously. She found herself watching him with Eleanor, his cold exterior thawing into a profound, quiet love that made her chest ache. She started to see the man behind the billionaire, a man who worked too hard, who carried a weight of solitude she recognized all too well. She was falling in love with him, truly, deeply, and stupidly, and it was the most dangerous part of their deal. One rainy afternoon, Eleanor wanted to play hide and seek. "No one ever finds me in the attic," she chirped before dashing off. Sasha gave her a count of 20 before following. The attic was a vast, shadowy space filled with sheet-draped ghosts of furniture and memories. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light from the round window. "Eleanor, come out, sweetie, you win!" A giggle came from behind a large canvas-covered object in the corner. Sasha smiled, pulling the dust sheet away. "Found you—" The words died in her throat. It wasn't furniture. It was a painting, a life-sized portrait of a beautiful woman with a warm, familiar smile and kind hazel eyes. She was holding the hand of a little girl, a toddler version of Eleanor. But it was the woman's face that stole the air from Sasha's lungs. It was her own face, not a resemblance, not a passing similarity. It was her. The same curve of the lips, the same slight dimple in the left cheek, the same way her hair fell over her shoulder. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't a coincidence. The rescue in the ballroom, the job offer, the sanctuary. It was all a plan. "That's Mommy," Eleanor said softly, emerging from her hiding spot. "She got sick when I was little. Papa doesn't like to talk about it." He put her picture away. Sasha's legs gave way. She sank to the dusty floorboards, her heart hammering against her ribs. Mommy. The pieces, sharp and cruel, clicked into place. Alexander hadn't saved a stranger. He had found a replica, a living, breathing stand-in for the wife he had lost. She wasn't a nanny. She was a ghost.